Hello, everybody. My name's Martin Crew from the product marketing team at GigaVUE-FM. And today I'm joined by Shamus McGillicuddy, VP of Research at EMA, Enterprise Management Associates. And we're going to have a discussion about network visibility architecture, how it's important and how, in fact, it can lead to make or break for cloud transformation processes. Shamus, hello there. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Martin. Thank you for having me.
Shamus, we've been doing some work with you around this whole area of network visibility, and I know you've recently produced a research piece on network visibility architectures in the hybrid multi-cloud environment. At the end of this session, we'll talk about how people can get access to some of those findings. But before we get into that, I'd really like to hear from you on sort of the 2 or 3 key takeaways that you've taken from that research. So what's the sort of, well, first of all, please take a minute and give yourself an introduction, and then let's look at those 3 key findings and talk about what you think is the most important issue.
Sure. I'm the Vice President of Research for Enterprise Management Associates. I focus on network infrastructure and operations. So I survey and talk to thousands of network operations professionals in the enterprise world every year about everything having to do with designing, building, and managing networks. And one part of my practice is focusing on the visibility architectures that enterprises use to get traffic data to their analysis tools, both performance related and cybersecurity related.
Great. Okay. So in terms of this research, which I know is a very substantial piece and really complemented a lot of other research you've done in parallel, what are sort of one of the main takeaways from that piece as maybe it affects enterprises looking at multi-cloud architectures?
Sure. So this research, which is based on a survey of a little over 300 people who are focused on visibility technologies like those that are offered by GigaVUE-FM, found that network operations and cybersecurity teams are struggling with islands of visibility. They are moving aggressively towards multi and hybrid cloud architectures. In fact, most NetOps teams tell me these days that public hybrid multi-cloud architectures is their primary strategic driver for network management in general. And so it's no surprise that they're struggling with islands of visibility in the hybrid multi-cloud. For instance, 46% of them in this research told us that the move towards the cloud had created blind spots in their networks.
Yeah, it's an interesting area, isn't it? I mean, we have a lot of our customers doing the same thing. And we see that this is a very complex problem. It's almost a 3-dimensional problem. It's not a matter of islands of visibility in the sense purely of silos from one environment to another. It's even within those silos getting visibility into the east-west traffic or the intercontainer traffic within those environments, and also top to bottom within the silo. So to be able to see what's happening at the application level as well as the network level. So certainly this is a complex area that we're seeing emerging with our customers.
Yes, and as you become more multi-cloud, so to speak, the complexity grows even further because the silos are also straddling multiple platforms. So, I said 46% of the companies in the survey told us they had a blind spot introduced by their move to the cloud. That number goes up to 68% when you're using 3 or more cloud providers today. And the consequences can be devastating. They told us one of the biggest things, most common things they encounter is a policy violation around security or compliance, but they're also encountering things that impact productivity and customer churn, such as problematic application performance that lasts for a long time. Also, security breaches. 45% of the companies that have a cloud-driven blind spot in their network have experienced a security breach as a direct consequence of that.
Yeah. And one of the other things I think you mentioned as one of your key findings is that this problem of visibility impacts the ability of teams to collaborate and work effectively together, whether it's NetOps with SecOps, whether it's DevSecOps coming into the mix as we increasingly see. So I think that's one of the issues as well. What did you sort of learn from your research about that collaboration issue?
Yes, collaboration in the cloud and on-premise is of critical importance. We are seeing in the enterprise world a push towards bringing NetOps and SecOps together, but also NetOps and DevOps together. This research specifically asked, do you believe that a visibility fabric built on a technology like GigaVUE can improve or support collaboration between the network team and the security team? 88% were positive towards that. They said, yes, we think that it's going to facilitate better collaboration. Just, ready access to data can open doors between two groups. They see it primarily as an opportunity to improve incident response. Security team has better access to data. Network team can provide them relevant data and also give them reports from their tools using the same data. Improves the security team's ability to respond to a security incident. But they're also looking at it to enable performance management, even things like working together on threat hunting, which is not something NetOps often does, and capacity planning, which is something NetOps does, but not necessarily SecOps. But SecOps should be thinking about it because the inline systems that they have in place for security can often become bottlenecks, we see. And if those two groups are collaborating on capacity management more closely, that bottlenecking is less likely to occur.
Yeah, I think it's an idea that has been accepted for a long time at the business level, isn't it? That business users have got to be looking at the same data to make good decisions. And I think we're now seeing it at the network level with more technical data, that you've got to have all of these different teams looking at the same data set in order to facilitate effective collaboration. And one of the things that we're seeing is the sort of migration of these ideas from just visibility, just seeing what's happening, to visibility and collaboration, which really kind of come together in this concept of observability, which is one of the main things that we're talking about at present with our customers. What's the EMA take on observability? Is it something that you see delivers value?
It's an active area of research for us, but I think, yes, most companies are thinking about observability, at least from the DevOps side, but the NetOps side is starting to think about it as well. We asked in this research, do you see an opportunity for your visibility architecture to contribute to and extend into observability efforts that might be driven by your DevOps team? 59% of the people in our survey, and these are people who are responsible for visibility architectures, told us that they are combining packet analysis with analysis of traditional observability data like metrics, logs, and traces. And we saw indications that this was a best practice. And organizations that were more successful with their use of visibility architectures were more likely to be doing this. Also, as companies became more cloud diversified, using more and more providers in a multi-cloud architecture, they also became more interested in combining traffic data and observability data analysis. And so that points to an opportunity for a better overall view of what's happening in your multi-cloud network, your hybrid multi-cloud network, but also a more shared view of the world between NetOps, SecOps, and DevOps. And the groups that are most interested in leveraging that data were security. Security teams see it as a huge opportunity, especially combining traffic analysis with log analysis, for instance. But also cloud ops and NetOps. Our research data showed us strong interest coming from those two groups as well. So it's coming from different constituencies within a digital operation.
Yeah. So one of the other areas that I think you highlighted when you spoke about network visibility being a potential make or break for cloud transformations was an area that I think you've termed questionable architecture decisions. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was our third key finding, I'd say. we were seeing indications that people weren't following best practices when it comes to building out a visibility architecture. One thing that I found a little concerning was the most popular approach to decrypting traffic data for analysis was on the analysis tools themselves. 40+% said that was their preference. And that's very decentralized and also an inefficient use of resources, because a lot of analysis tools, you want to devote as much of the overhead of hardware resources on that tool to processing traffic data, not prepping the data through decryption, but processing it. So it should be done by an intermediary, preferably a centralized resource that can decrypt traffic centrally and send it to multiple places for analysis for different reasons, whether it's performance, security, whatever. So I was a little concerned that a lot of companies were relying on decryption on the tools themselves, because it's going to force them to upgrade their tools at some point. And actually, people who are less successful with visibility architectures were more likely to do that. So it was an indicator of a worse practice, if you will. People who were better at using technology from vendors like Gigamon were less likely to decrypt on the tool. They were doing it somewhere else, whether on a network packet broker, a dedicated decryption appliance, or even a packet capture appliance. It should be done there before you turn to the tools. Another questionable practice in architecture that we picked up on was a shift towards relying more on span ports than taps for mirroring traffic into your visibility architecture. Or for several years now, when we asked people, what percentage of your mirrored ports are enabled by a span port or a tap, it was always a majority of overall mirroring was done by taps, which are dedicated appliances, which can be centrally managed, but are also more reliable because it's hardware dedicated to the purpose of mirroring traffic. This year, we saw a shift towards relying a little bit more on span ports than taps, meaning people are configuring individual switches to have a dedicated interface that's just mirroring traffic into the visibility fabric, which is less of a best practice. It's not recommended, because a switch, its primary mission is to forward traffic on the production network. A span port is a secondary mission of it. And when it's experiencing high loads of utilization, it's going to start dropping packets on that span port, and the visibility fabric is going to have lower fidelity on overall traffic data. So, and also it's not as easy to centrally manage that. And you don't see a lot of innovation in span port configurations from switch vendors. They never talk to us about what they're doing and the latest and greatest capabilities around their span port features. It's not what they're doing. It's not their mission. So if you want to have an industry like a state-of-the-art visibility fabric, it starts with relying more on taps than span ports.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. So I'm not going to comment overall on bad architectural decisions. I mean, I know a lot of organizations work with a lot of constraints that sometimes do force these decisions, but I'd certainly agree that using devices to do decryption that aren't designed to do that is going to create problems. And similarly, and actually, I'm really surprised by this move back from using dedicated taps to using span ports, which, as you say, for years we've known are prey to dropping packets. So it's a bit of a retrograde step, in my opinion. So Shamus, This is super interesting stuff. If people want more information from this report, how could they get that from you?
They could visit our website, which is enterprisemanagement.com, and search for it in the research library. It'll be there. It may actually be on the front page of the website, depending on what else has been published recently.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So thank you very much for your time and for sharing those findings with us. Definitely encourage people watching this to go get more information from EMA. The other option you've got, and we're making this a little bit easy for you, is if you go to the Gigamon website, you will find an abbreviated version of this on the gigamon.com/cloud page. So there's a page there with a lot of much more broad information than we've discussed today on Gigamon's cloud capabilities, but we're definitely featuring some of the EMA research, which we find to be very, very valuable. So again, Shamus, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciated it, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
You too, Martin. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.